Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from AnthonysCustoms, and for this review, we are looking at the brand new X-Men wave of Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure Juggernaut. Now, this is a figure that many people have been highly anticipatory toward. That was a weird way of saying that. People were looking forward to this figure, that's what I'm trying to say. And it's mostly gonna live up to their expectations, I think. I have the other one here, we'll compare him in a minute. But this guy, he's alright, he's not bad, he's pretty cool. I guess we should just get into it though so you can see for yourself if you actually want to buy the figure. So let's get him off the stand and take a closer look. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is the size of this Build-A-Figure. It's kind of an issue with the Hasbro Legends. For a very long time now, we haven't been getting particularly large Build-A-Figures. So let's see, how does this guy stack up? He's just shy of 9 inches, probably closer to 8 3/4 inches to the top of his head, which makes him about 22 centimeters, right around there. So size-wise, and being that it is Juggernaut, so we have to give him some leeway, he's not supposed to be huge, I think it's a pretty good size. I don't really have any issues with that. In terms of the thickness, it's definitely there, and in terms of the height, I think it's fine. Just for a quick comparison, that's what he looks like up against a normal-sized figure. So he's definitely got the size. That's fine. So what's going to really be a problem for this guy, if it's going to be a problem, is the detail and how they put the figure together. Before we go into that, though, I just want to compare. You guys seem to like comparisons. A lot of you ask for them. So it's not always relevant or necessary to compare figures, especially when one was a Build-A-Figure and one wasn't. But I thought I would bring out the classic Juggernaut just for a little bit of reference. So before we get even into the specifics, I have to point out the fact that I think this guy's color scheme is definitely better. Maybe not for the skin tones because they're a little bit too orange. And I could see going with the brighter red for the boots and the stomach. That's fine. But for the rest of the body, that browner color, I definitely prefer this. And even if you wanted to leave it like that, because this brown part's not bad, we have to agree on, you guys have to agree with me, it's a thing you have to do. The helmet and the bands and the belt, way too dark on the new one. It looks a little bit odd. Having the helmet the same color as the chest is pretty much standard throughout at least most of the iterations of Juggernaut throughout the years. So having this really, really dark helmet, the dark belt, and the dark straps does look a little bit odd. Everything else is pretty good though in general, and as you can see, the Build-A-Figure's a little bit taller and definitely has, well, at least for the most part, better proportions. So there's your comparison right there. Hopefully that satisfies those of you who like the comparisons. Obviously no accessories, he is a Build-A-Figure, and the helmet does not come off, so that's another bonus of the old figure. The helmet can come off on that one. This one, it looks like it can, but it can't. Not without breaking it, technically, so it's not ideal. Now, as far as the actual aesthetic of the figure, most of it's good. Like I said, the steel bands around the arms and the belt and the helmet, definitely too dark. They're borderline black, especially the belt here. They're really, really, really dark. So I think that would definitely look better if they were lighter. It's not a deal breaker, but we're here for a review, so we have to review it. The only other real aesthetic issue, other than the main one that I have to talk about, is that this red here is a different color red than on the sides, and hopefully that shows up on camera. From what I can tell, and I didn't take it apart to look, but I'm pretty sure the sides are painted red, and the torso here is molded in red, which would make sense because I'm pretty sure this is molded in the brown. So the reds don't match. They almost never match the reds when they mold and paint red up against itself. So it's not a huge problem, but it is a problem. And I think they would have done themselves a favor if, with this line work, they worked it out so that they could put a line right on the seam of the ab crunch. It would have hidden the ab crunch completely. But that's just an insight, not something that's necessary. Okay, then the last thing that we really have to talk about before we just run through the articulation is the head. Now, I am not, I repeat, not a fan of this particular head sculpt. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, you're not a fan of many things. And I'm thinking, well, maybe you shouldn't be either. But here's the thing, that head sculpt does not look great. The eyes are so ridiculously wide set on him. And I could get behind the helmet. The helmet shape's okay, but the way the head fits in that helmet, it just looks weird. I feel like they should have tooled it a little bit, tweaked it a little bit. It's not deal breaking. It's just it's gonna look pretty awkward. And then the paint job on the teeth isn't fantastic either. It's not great. And if you can notice right here, you see that white spot that you're seeing next to his eye? That's because the helmet doesn't really fit down on the body very well. And if you want to pose it, it's gonna really lift the helmet up. So it's gonna be difficult for this guy to look particularly good on your shelf. It's definitely good enough, but it's not great. And especially if you have him looking up like that, the helmet lifts up a lot. So I think I would have opted for the helmet to fit better and maybe only swivel a little bit or something like that. And it's not terrible like it is, but we're here for the review, so we have to talk about things like this. The helmet not really fitting on the torso, I don't think the minimal articulation you gain from it is worth the sacrifice in the aesthetic of the figure. I don't think so. And I think what we're going to see is people taking that helmet off right there and giving him a new custom head underneath and probably resituating the helmet on the body in terms of customizing. But, you know, it's not bad necessarily. It's just not good. It's not where I'd like to see it. And one other minor thing I just noticed is the way they sculpted the pecs. I know people have these kind of striations where the pectoral muscle inserts into the bone there. I've never seen it look like that, though. The way it's all zigzaggy. It's kind of strange, and if you're familiar with anatomy, that might stand out to you, but it's not a deal breaker again. Okay, so let's talk about articulation. We kind of mentioned it already a little bit with the head, but the head is on this kind of joint. So it has the hinge and the ball peg, and there you can see inside how the head is a separate piece from the helmet. They could have easily just made it a removable helmet, but they chose not to, so it's a bit disappointing. Don't know why they went that route other than to save a few coins. That's what it was, I guess. Shoulders, pretty standard shoulder. You get the full rotation. You get the hinge. Really no problem at all. Plenty of range there. No big deal. And then we have the bicep swivel, full range again. It's worth noting these things are all separate pieces. So maybe they're looking to use this body mold again, or at least make it an opportunity so that they can if they need to. They are not connected though. They do kind of fit, so if you force them, they'll stay on, but you may want to add a dab of glue. That's just up to you. We have our elbow hinge. We get about 90, not quite, but it's good enough. No big deal. And then this is a separate piece again for the wrist. So be aware that it is technically a separate piece. And then we have our wrist swivel and a hinge, and then both hands are fists. They are a little fat looking in this region right here. They tend to make the palms really fat on these figures, and maybe it's just to fit the articulation in there, but it's not terrible. They just look a little... It's a kind of a strange sculpt, but it's not, like I said, it's not terrible. And then, of course, these guys are painted on, I mean, they're molded into the hand, so they're just painted, whereas these guys are separate pieces. For the torso articulation, we have a really nice ab crunch. Let's zoom out a little bit so you can see that a little bit better. It leans all the way forward. You kind of have to force that last notch, but he leans almost completely forward. And it's not the best looking, but I suppose you're not going to be looking at the back anyway, so that is okay. And then leaning backwards, he leans not so far back at all, one notch only. So it's not great, but it'll do. It'll be good enough for some minor posing. For the waist twist, we have a waist twist, so that's fine. The belt, this is kind of interesting. The belt doesn't really fit below the waist. If you want to use the belt, it's going to have to go either like that, where it's up over the butt because it doesn't really fit, or you're going to have to kind of keep it up above the waist where it doesn't want to stay. So I'm not sure why they didn't make the belt fit, but they didn't. And he does have a belly button, which is a little strange, but it's there. So that's the thing. For the hips, surprisingly enough, we get pretty good range. Probably better than most of the figures these days, so that's good out to the side. Going forward, obviously he's bulky, but it's not bad. It's got decent range. There goes the ruler. We have a thigh swivel, which is no problem at all. And the way they have the thigh come up over the ball hinge is really nice. It hides the joint pretty well. And for the knees, it's very similar to Rhino or Abomination. Minimal range, and at least they're not quite as boxy. They're not as bad. They're not great, but it'll get the job done for this particular figure, so it's okay. And then for the ankles, some of these figures don't have great range going forward. His, if you force it, isn't too bad. It's not the best. You can see it's not far off of neutral, but it's there, so that's okay. And then it goes all the way back, and you get your ankle rocker. No swivel in the boot, so it's only going to be in the thigh. So ultimately, is it the best Juggernaut Marvel Legends figure ever? Probably, but that's only because he's going against that old one that had some pretty serious issues. And that's not to say this guy doesn't have them. I mean, like I said, the color scheme seems a little bit odd to me. Not deal breaking, but it is an issue. And then the head, I'm not loving the head. It looks a little bit weird to me, but I think it's not bad. And if you pose him right, it won't look too bad either. So ultimately, yes, I recommend him. Is he the best Build-A-Figure we've gotten recently? Maybe. He might be the best, but we do have some issues to be aware of. And honestly, I'm not just saying this because I'm a customizer. I think some minor customizing on this guy will take it far beyond any other Build-A-Figure we have. We could have used a little bit of shading in the arms, and then just a recolor I think would make this guy pretty fantastic, but he's still pretty darn good as it is. So we'll end it there. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos every single day, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you check back for that, and in the meantime, keep collecting.